All right, the time is now 6:30. I'd like to call the regular Board of Finance meeting to order. Please join us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Tom Sinkowitz, John Cavella. Here. Kim Medlin.
Here.
Travis Irons. Ted Dumaine.
Here.
Gary Stalboy.
Here.
Matt Raden.
Here.
Keith Shea.
Here.
Okay, acceptance of the minutes from the January 22nd, 2020 meeting. Minutes were distributed, posted. Questions, discussion on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move we accept the minutes.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, I have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries to approve the minutes. All right, first item under new business. Item A, to discuss and act on special education excess cost. So the Board of Education had sent a memo, this is going back to January 2nd, 2020, where they had officially already at that point acted on and was making their formal request that the state will be awarding the 75% of the special education excess by the end of the month. And so because of that, the Board of Ed is requesting 75% of the allowable cost coverage, which is the amount of $256,691. So tonight, we're here to have any discussion, questions on that, and then we have to act on it. Now, besides acting to approve it, we also have to send it to town meeting. Before we do that, I would like to recognize our Board of Ed Chair, Christy Haskell, if there's anything that she'd like to add.
Good evening. I brought copies. And I apologize because we will be leaving right after this. I have ongoing negotiations, so I stepped out during that. So you can take one and pass it around. So as you know, we sent a request to the Board of Selectmen to utilize the special education excess aid grant. In the amount we're asking for $256,691. As you can see from the second page, currently you are due to receive from the state $342,255. Utilizing that, you see over the past 5 years, Plainfield Schools has only accessed $350,000 of that. We try to be very conservative and budget for our students as we receive them, but we can't always predict special education students that are going to come into the district. So over the last 5 years, there's about $4 million that has been gained from the special education excess aid. Right now, the special ed population has grown, but we're using this money as a cost offset versus going to the taxpayers. This enables us to kind of keep it balanced so that our MBR isn't being raised and also that we're not being a burden to the taxpayers. This cost offset will help. So as you see from that first page, pretty much the special education amount has risen every year, but it's relatively steady. Where you see us currently is where we are, but we can't always predict those students that come in. So by accessing this money, it will help us. We are not asking for extra bus money. We're not asking for all of it for the transportation. So basically the request that you get is what I consider to be a conservative request. If there are questions, I do have Ron Lucier, the finance manager, and Scott Sugarman, our assistant superintendent, with us tonight.
Okay, thank you, Christy.
Questions?
I'm unsure whether or not you do have to go to a town meeting for this, because it is a cost offset, utilizing that grant money.
Yeah, Kevin, I know you and I have discussed this and talked about it on the town meeting.
If it's you're actually taking money out of a fund for it, you'd have to go through a town meeting.
I'm gonna ask Scott Sugarman, Assistant Superintendent Sugarman.
Yeah, just with all due respect, I just want to look into it in more detail with Ken DePietro as well, because special education excess is not local taxpayer funds, it's generated from state funds. So it's state funds that are coming to the town to offset special education costs. And so with that offset, it's not increasing taxpayer mill rate or asking money to be taken out of. What it's doing is, it's with special education excess cost, is you're not just putting money into the general fund. It's not like you're taking money out of the general fund to use it. It's money that just doesn't go in there because it needs to go to special education excess cost first. So I just want to clarify that one particular point for you, because I know this is a public meeting before going forward. So I'll make sure we follow up on that particular point.
And just to clarify, if you were to grant that money to us, it does not raise the NBR, it does not affect our NBR. No further questions?
So we don't, is it set in stone what the final grant value is going to be for this fiscal year? That's the $873,000 figure?
779.
So right now it's about 100,000. So with special education excess cost, there's a December 1 filing that my office does to the state. That gets audited by the state. They check our contracts that we have, because each excess cost that we put in, we have to have an individual contract with that outside agency individually for that child to represent that excess cost and put that in. So there's a lot of work that goes into the December 1st filing that gets verified by the state, and then it's reported to the town somewhere around end of January, beginning of February, to the town treasurer, which is the Board of Finance of the town. Then there's a March 1st filing as well. The reason why there's a March 1st filing is some students that are outplaced, that is the excess cost, they leave your district. Some students come into your district. You might have transitioned a student back into district and that cost went away. So in December 1, you're reporting to the state that this student's going to cost us $80,000. But by March 1st, that contract has expired now because they've left the town of Plainfield, and now the responsibility of Brooklyn. Brooklyn's going to put that in their excess cost for March 1st. It goes out of our excess cost at March 1st. So there is an adjustment, but just to highlight how fragile this is and really why it is, just today, a new student moved into the town of Plainfield that is already outplaced. They're new to us, they moved here, we didn't outplace them, they're part of DCF care, and they're already in a private facility, and we become fiscally responsible for that child immediately. So that's why you do a March 1st filing, and then there's an end of year expenditure filing as well too. And that's why the state, when they release the funds, they do 75% at the first time, because they know there's going to be an adjustment that happens at the next filing. And part of that adjustment also entails how much other towns are accessing excess costs. If other towns don't need it as much, that's more pot for the towns that do and did see an increase. So that 779 can slightly go up as well as we do it as well too. One other highlight that I just want to say, just so the Board of Finance knows how we're really trying to push the fiscally responsibility of the excess cost. As far as I know, Kevin Chambers at the state is the one that oversees this. He says it's not just for students that are privately placed. If we have a high-cost student that's in our district that we service here, but let's say they have a teacher and 2 paraprofessionals and a speaker, and they have a lot of service, and that cost is a high cost, we can put into the state excess cost for that child. No other district taps into that part of it. We actually are doing that this year. So we have a Pathways program that is a part of our programming of a small number of students. We're putting in that excess cost that is $400,000 program for 9 kids. When you divide that up in the service we're providing, we're putting that excess cost into the state for approval. So we're really trying to maximize the excess cost and all the services that we're providing for kids. So It's a long answer to a specific question, but I wanted to give you all that context there.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, there's a number of filings.
Correct.
The last of which hasn't been done yet.
Main ones are two, December 1, March 1st, and then there's an end of year, which there's not much, you're not going to lose money at the end of the year. They just want to make sure for auditing purposes that everything is clear at the end of the year expenditure. But they're not going to come back at the end of the year, and if you lost a bunch of kids and say, hey, Town of Plainfield, Board of Ed, you owe us, as the state, $300,000.
But the remainder of the funds could be impacted by what that final filing is going to be.
Yes and no. 75% of what they're expecting to owe us is given to us now, what they currently get, they release to the town, and the remaining 25% is on hold until after the March 1st filing. But as I talked about, we brought some kids back, but we've also received at least 2 new kids since that December 1st filing. So our excess cost is not going to go down in that capacity.
So, Chairman Haskell, I guess my only question would be if it's possible, because the money is earmarked specifically for this use in special education, if already we know that the offset need is north of $342,000, is there any reason why we would purposely try to underrun that if the monies are available within this first release of the grant money? Because if I understand correctly, it's not as if the money could possibly be used in any other direction.
Well, we try to be conservative. We know that the town, does count on receiving funds as well. So we are only accessing that currently.
But the town only receives the funds to use specifically, to allocate specifically to that end purpose. It's not like being conservative in this nature would enable the funds to be used anywhere else in the town. That's my question, is why not go for the full amount that you could access now for that overrun? Especially if it's not going to impact the NBR and it's not going to...
That's something that we would...
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
So it's also that this is set up from the state to offset these high-cost situations that come onto towns, that are unbudgeted, unpredicted, unanticipated costs that you become fiscally responsible for and legally responsible for to provide for those children. The town of Plainfield historically has not tried to access that as much as possible. But there's a lot of changing things that are happening in this part of the state where there's unavoidable, unanticipated cost that happens. So if we don't access that, it's not like the town loses that. But that money is there when we need it. It provides an offset to the specific special education costs. We can't put that into other areas within the Board of Education budget, Mr. Bernard. Like, we have to provide that to specifically offset, and I'm using that word offset very importantly here, because it is just to offset overrun of costs specifically within special education, tuition, and transportation.
That $342,000 is a current overrun that would be offset. That's what's been accrued in excess to the budget thus far? Or is that a projection?
When this memo was written, that was the current unanticipated cost. And we were asking for a specific percentage of that based off of the percentage of 75% of excess cost that is released to the town after the December 1 filing. So we were trying to be fiscally conservative with what we were asking for at that time. But yes, you are right. That full $300,000+ there is the full unanticipated cost. And at the time that this was written, it's actually, there's some more unanticipated costs that we didn't specifically ask for in here that come up after this was written, such as today.
No further questions?
Okay, thank you, Christie.
75% of that grant is available for them to access now.
Yeah.
What's the value of the grant?
Yeah, I don't remember the total value. Kevin, so the thought I just had was, couldn't we just look into our records and see, we were in the same situation last year as far as how we went about handling it. I remember when we discussed it and had to approve it at Board of Finance, but then did we take any measure after that, or was that the final step? Because my guess would be, I mean, if this is how we did it last year, we just voted on it and then it went through, we wouldn't do it differently.
I don't think we would. This is a grant. That's correct, this is a
Yes.
grant.
Yeah.
A little different, but it is gonna make a change to the number on your education, on the education side for special ed. So the numbers will change on the budget side. Just it's recognizing it through this board at this time, I think is appropriate to do the same thing.
Yeah. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve this that the Board of Ed is requesting?
I'll motion that the request be approved in the amount of $256,691 as specified by the Board of Ed.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, item B, to discuss and act on real estate suspense list. Our tax collector had to go to her other job, so she could not be with us here this evening. This is a process that, of course, we go through annually. The note I got from her, which I will read for everyone, is we have here in front of us the attached list of accounts that the tax collector is requesting to be into suspense. The grand total of accounts is $171,787.45. A summary sheet, which everyone has in front of them, is also attached to break down by list of year and bill type. Now, these properties are tax sale properties where either did not get a high enough bid or they just did not go. Section 35 simplifies the suspense statute. It eliminates the need to attempt a foreclosure or tax sale before suspending a real estate, and instead allows the collector to just list out any delinquent tax accounts believed to be uncollectible for whatever reason to be approved by the Board of Finance. So we've had the chance to review the list. If we have any questions, we can of course contact her directly. Otherwise, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So she was requesting that this get approved.
Motion the suspense list be approved as presented by the tax collector.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Is there coming off of the suspense list? Or do we have to go? Select?
It's gonna, yes, it will be.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries to approve the real estate suspense list. All right, next item, item C, to discuss and act on line item transfers. Before we begin with this, I did have one note I wanted to ask our first selectman. Kevin, I guess there might be an error on here that I was talking to the chief about in regards to the police. So my question is, I know this is how it's been approved and presented to us from the Board of Selectmen. So could we, in this case tonight, assuming we don't have any issues and we end up approving this list, could we make an amendment to this and approve it as we amend it, as the chief would state what the error is and how we can fix it?
That sounds appropriate.
Yeah, okay. And with that said, I'd also like Kevin, and I had attended the first selectmen's meeting when Kevin had originally presented it, so I know that it's pretty straightforward, but if there's any questions, Kevin, of course, had given some great thought and time putting this together and had provided the information, so if there's anything you'd like to reiterate or add to it.
Actually, I've already presented this before to the Board of Finance and preparing for what we're going to have to do, so if there are any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer, but most of what you see here is taking from one line item to help to offset the lower issues that we had. We had some legal notice issues, and we're trying to take it again from the highway salaries. We were short on the election workers, again, from the highway salary. This is the highway salary, by the way, of the supervisor, which was anticipated to be hired, but we did not do so. We've made an adjustment with the current acting supervisor to allow him to do some different things, so that he's been able to do that so far, so I think in this case, we can go the entire year without that. Moving forward on that, though, was also the building inspector for relocation fees. Obviously, there was an overrun, because we did have some relocation, and then the final one, well, two final ones. Town clerk department head, because we had 2 people in the position for a little while for training purposes, again from highway salaries, and then the final one in there is the building inspector vehicle expense, which came up in front of your board previously, so, but I did want to include it there to explain exactly where all of these came from and what the issues were. And just a point of reference, I did meet today with our election workers. We were looking at our budget for next year, so we anticipate this particular line item will be much more in line with what's actually going to be happening next year. We realized what the issue was with not, there's primaries and presidential primary coming up as well, so they were not included, as far as I can see, in this current budget. That's why there was an overrun. So we'll make sure that we adjust that for next time, but that's why this is in front of you right now.
Okay. Chief, since I got you here, can you just state that again for me for the record of what we need to ensure gets ended on this?
Yes, thank you. I put in 2 requests for line item transfers. The first request is correct. I'm looking to take money from salaries to put into training because of cost overrun, because of the state of Connecticut has increased the cost to send officers to the academy. So that was correct. The second line item, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to take $400 from sick day incentive and put that into the cost overrun of the $400 that I'm already in the hole for education incentive. So I think the request that is in front of you is to take $400 from the sick day incentive and put it into uniform allowance. Yes, I'm looking to do sick day incentive, $400 into the education incentive.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually have a question. So just for clarification, the highway supervisor salary is $66,285.60. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I know originally we were talking about how we had $80,000 and that was combined from the highway supervisor salary plus the insurance and
And
pension.
benefits.
Yeah, and benefits. So how do we actually get to that 14,000 number in terms of the benefits portion?
We'd anticipated whichever individual would have been hired would have taken at least the lower end of the benefits package, and that's why the lower number was projected.
So what was the higher number?
Well, the higher numbers, well, Kelly could probably give you better numbers there, but
So,
the one that was posted there was, we were anticipating, again, a single person coming in, taking for single benefits versus a family or,
26,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is just an estimate, this isn't like actual calculations, it's more just an estimate of what it would cost?
an estimate of what it,
Benefits?
but it would be, what would be available to an individual when they're hired.
Okay. obviously it's not really an issue because we're just taking this from salaries and we have 66,000 for that and we're only taking 37 from it. But I just wanted to get some clarification as to those specifics, so thank you.
Kevin, you said that line item 400 from the sick day incentive to now be education incentive does not have to be acted on by the Board of Selectmen?
For this amount, small amount, if you'd like us to go back, we can certainly do that, but for the 400, it was my error when I put it onto the paper,
Okay,
so.
thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the line item transfers as presented.
As presented, or with the?
As a
With the, okay. All right, so motion to approve the line item transfers with the correction from the 400 from sick day incentive to education incentive. Is there a second? Okay, we do have a second. Any other discussion?
Quick question.
Questions? Yep.
On the pool transfer, you have the highway supervisor on that one too? For pool operation? 28,000.
Yeah, that's the difference of the 66,
Oh,
plus what you're looking at now, the pool is a separate item.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries to approve the line item transfers with the correction. All right, item D, audit update. Kelly, I know you and I have been talking. Have I know you tried to go for the next extension, but you were a little early on that. And so has that timeline come yet to?
Yeah, we
put
can
it,
probably process it now,
Okay.
yes.
So we need to do that, but otherwise, what other news has there been from?
I spoke to the auditor today, we were emailing back and forth, and he said there's been significant amount of progress now since our last meeting, specifically related to cash reconciliations. Majority of them are done. I'm still working with the school with the trial balance. Christine, which is one of his accountants, is working right now to try to reconcile, tying out some of them to our trial balance, account reconciliations that I provided to them. Now they'll tie them up to the trial balance. So as far as I know, depreciation of assets have been completed, asset liability reconciliations completed, interfund reconciliations completed, cash reconciled, tax revenue and gas diesel inventory accounts have been completed. So we're making progress. So that's where we are.
the reconciliation, is that the same situation we had last year from the previous audit?
It's probably going to be noted again, yes. Yes.
And when it comes to the audit, are we gonna be over budget on the audit?
I can't tell you that 100%, I'm still working through the numbers and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay.
The issue that I had, I remember last year, I think we moved money from special ed revenue to the Board of Ed. Was that last year, fiscal year 2019? We had to move special ed money, even though it was earmarked for revenue. I think you might need to use fund balance to cover that. That might be an issue, but that's what I,
Was that the adult education?
special education
Special
excess.
education excess?
Yeah,
Okay.
remember we did that last year, like this year.
Mhm.
So, in next year's budget, if you guys want, just a thought, special education revenue, don't, maybe not book it as a revenue, maybe you let them absorb it, and then you won't have to use fund balance to absorb it. Because if you, when you use, like, your earmark 300,000 for revenue, and then you're gonna, let the school use it for excess, which that's what it's for, you shouldn't budget it for revenue, because now you're gonna be short 300,000, and you're gonna use a fund balance to offset that. Just a thought.
So do we think this is going to go beyond March at this time?
What do you mean? Oh, no,
Okay.
no, the audit, no, it should be complete. by
Because March was
Yes. Yeah, a
Yeah.
turning point,
a
yes.
turning point at
Yes.
every,
Mhm. No, it won't go past that.
okay. And in terms of the reconciliations and trial balances, the issues that we were talking about last month with the auditor, just in terms of, there were some issues with credits and debits being swapped.
Yes.
Has that all been
Yes,
resolved?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. In my reconciliation, I noted that revenues were posted as debits, not credits, and to expenditure line items, so, yeah, that's all
So
cleaned
now
up.
everything's
It's
rolling
cleaned up,
over?
yes,
Okay, and,
yeah, yep.
Are there any amended filings, not including I believe that the Board of Ed was gonna have to have an amended file based on the adult
EFS.
education, right?
Yeah.
Are there any other amended filings that might have
The
to be?
Emma disclosure, which is your bond filing disclosure, we're gonna have to file that. That's usually due February 28th, I wanna say. So it's Emma, it's involved. Yeah, it's Emma.
And Kevin, certainly whenever that day comes, when we get that official call that we're done, I'm prepared to call a special meeting, and obviously not wait till the next meeting to have the auditor come out and give us the official presentation, so that way we can approve it. And then whenever that special meeting may fall, hopefully then, not too long after, we can,
Schedule a town meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
get that done. All right, there's nothing else in the audit. Moving on to item E, review fiscal year 1920 budget statement.
What I was able to look at revenue, you got education cost share, your second payment for the year, you'll get one more payment, and then that'll be, you usually receive that maybe, I think, May, ESS. Right now, we're at 94% collection rate for our year, and that's current year, not back taxes.
What was that rate?
94%. We've collected right now 94 for the grand list year.
When's the last time you were updated?
January payments, and I confirmed it with Karen downstairs.
Somehow I had 97%, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure I got that.
Yeah. 94. For 97 was last year, grand list year. Current year, grand list of 2018 is 94. What else do we have for revenue? I was,
Budget is based on 98 and a half.
yes, 98 and a half, yep, current year. Let's see, do you guys have any questions, of any specific revenue line items? I was able to look at special duty for last year, and we collected about 58,000. You'll see revenue for fiscal year 2019 for special duty, it'll be 58. I reconcile that at the end of the year, after we know what the receivables are left on the books. Let's see.
One thing just to note, I know Kelly was able to confirm this with the state, is Town Aid Road Program, which is run through DOT, as no bonding package was voted on by the legislature in that last session, there's been no payments for Town Aid Road for the municipal grants and aids program. So that was, I know, a question that come up before, so thank you for following up on that. because I was
We just
wondering
heard today that it should be released shortly,
Yeah, okay.
that they're sending it, they're gonna send the payments out. So that's substantial, that's 144,000 right now we should have, which we don't.
Yeah.
Back taxes too, we've collected 355,000 out of the budgeted 425. I don't know if you have any specific revenue questions, or if you want me to go into expenditures.
Dog park, lot sales,
I don't have,
for 45 grand.
yeah, nothing, I don't know of any discussions yet. Kevin, do you know of any discussions with Mike Park?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
There's one in discussion right now, and another one just came to us yesterday to discuss a second lot. So we're gonna continue on with that as soon as I get some more information from the Board of Finance, I'll let you know.
Do you guys want me to go into expenditures? I can talk about my department, finance. So in my department, we have an audit budgeted for 24,700. I'm gonna be running over that line item. The audit itself came in at, I think, 31,000, 6,000 we charged for WPCA, it's our sewer authority, and then 25,000 is what the town can absorb. In that line item, I usually have gas fee reports, those are accounting reports I have to do, OPEB, and I think gas fee 67, 68. Those cost money, so I'm gonna probably run over at least $3,000 in that line item, that wasn't budgeted there. Let's see. That's for that. Registrars, we discussed that, so we did a line item transfer for that. That would take care of the shortage in there. Buildings and ground, the electricity, we'll be watching that closely. That's gonna be coming close to the budget number. Let's see. Pool operation, recreation, budget of 113,000, we received, well, expenditures, sorry, 113,000, the expenditures are 66.
The sick and vacation payouts?
Yep, that is unexpected budget of paying out an employee what was left on the books. General insurance and workers' comp insurance, I just want to let you guys be aware of this. That's on page 6. The allocation we use with the school department in the town, we have one policy, and there's an allocation we use that was changed after the budget was created. So you're going to run short with general LAP insurance, general insurance, and workers' comp. We'll be short, the town will be.
It was the school side of that they cited as potential cost savings for that reduction.
Yes, yeah, the school has the savings and the town absorbs the cost, so now I'm going to be over. Yes. Yes.
Would you be okay with the computer?
Kyle, I spoke to him about that and he said yes, he should be okay. Probate, that payment has been made. It's a budgeted line item that they send an invoice to us every year, and that's the amount we agree upon paying. So we dispersed it, $8,000.
Chief,
Yep.
yeah, we still got a balance for the police cars. Did you buy that, chief, already? The new car?
Neither of the cars have come in, but I didn't get what you were asking.
Yeah, because it says that, you know, we haven't spent anything on it. I thought we took the tour, I thought that was a new car there.
No,
No?
no, it was not. The new cars are gonna be 2 SUVs.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Those have not arrived.
All right.
I just have a question with economic development, the expenses. So usually when we spend more money, it's bad, but if you're looking at the marketing and the printing, we're really not utilizing any of that money for economic development. Do we have any plans in terms of economic development? I know that's kind of been a hot topic. Is this something that we could use with some of our different projects coming up?
I'm not sure what the plan was before I came in, but I'm trying to work with the economic developers to come up with an actual plan for if any of these monies need to be expended. Right now, we're working actually on the town website to do the marketing there.
Okay.
And that's our first go-around, and after that, we'll talk about printed places to do marketing as well.
Okay.
questions? Budget statement? If not, moving on to item F, discuss and act on pool repairs. So I want to make sure everyone should have, you received an email, but make sure you have a printout. We have in front of us the list is being requested with the expenses and items that would be needed for the pool. Ron is not here this evening, or no?
No, I'm here.
Oh, you are?
How am I doing here?
Did not see you. Okay, well, thank you. I was gonna say, he was at the selectmen's meeting, and I thought you did a very good job there, so if you could just kind of, you know, in summary, like you had done there, just for the board, you know, let us know here as far as what is the absolute necessary things here that are needed to get the pool up and running. And then also on here, I know there are things that we're looking to do to obviously improve this wonderful asset that we have here in the town. But it would be nice to know, again, what are the essential things that it's not a question of if we need it, it's a matter of, you know, can we get the funds to purchase this?
Okay. The pump, which had already went, it's installed. That was taken care of before. It wasn't part of this this money that's being requested. But we have filters. The filters are supposed to last 10 years. They're on about year 13. One was rebuilt a few years ago. It sort of worked rebuilding it. The other one's starting to go now. They have chambers in there that the sand leaks into the pool when the chambers start to crack. What they're afraid of is when this new pump is turned on, it's going to have 20 to 30 psi more than the existing pump, which is already breaking down the filters. So filters are just going to break. It's just going to take these fingers and break them. So we're going to close the pool down again for weeks. So we found it better to let's put the filters in while it's closed. So they have to be done. The heat coil and the actuator, that works with the Dectron that was installed a few years ago, and that it heats the pool area itself, not the water, but the area. And that's important because you want the air in the room close to the temperature of the water as possible, because it creates less humidity. Humidity is a huge problem for the whole system. The Dectron takes it out, but it can only do so much. It also makes it when you get out of the water, you know, you're coming out of 85-degree water, you're not coming into a 60-degree room. You want the air comfortable for everyone in the pool area. It does also help keep the water at a reasonable temperature too. I mean, now that the heat's been off in there, the temperature is 59 degrees. I mean, it just drops. The other thing that's very important is the ultraviolet light. That helps burn off the bacteria and viruses in the pool. Outside, the sun does that. At the chlorine as well. And the chlorine helps do that in the interior pool, but it doesn't get it all. It still sits there, and it goes around, and it doesn't go away. I mean, we change the water, we do dump water and put new water in, but that gets expensive as well. It also gets rid of the chloramines, which is it's what you get when the chlorine breaks down, and that's what creates the smell of the chlorine. So if you walk into the hallway downstairs, you'll smell chlorine if the chloramines are in the pool. There's nothing you can do with that. You can either dump the water, or the ultraviolet light burns it off, like the sun would burn it off outside. Those are the most important things. Those are the things that have to be done. The other things are we have 2 vent fans which circulate the air and also help bring the humidity out. One of them is now broken. It should be replaced because if the other one breaks, and we've lost belts, so it goes for a day or so at a time, but if it breaks, then we're stuck. We have no way to transfer that air around, bring fresh air in, take humidity out, and in a worst case, if the Dectron broke and the fans broke, the humidity just builds up and then we lose our ceiling. The other thing is the locker rooms, just to bring them a little bit more up to date. Some dividers in the men's shower. Right now, it's like it was 50 years ago. There's 4 shower heads on the wall, and basically everyone just showers together. These would create not complete stalls, but dividers, so at least there's separation from side to side. And we would build a unisex changing room in the women's locker room area. It's the only place we have room to put it. Because once you start doing this, you have to build it to code, which means you need a certain number of square feet. We can't fit one in each locker room. So we're gonna do a unisex one in the ladies. That's a much bigger room. So when you come in the entrance door, we will have an entrance into this separate room and then another entrance into the locker room. So the men aren't in the ladies' locker room. They're just outside of it. And they wouldn't go through the ladies' locker room. They would, once their kid was changed, they'd have to go back out, down the hall, and through the men's locker room. But it just gives a place for them to, the men to change their daughter rather than bring her into the men's locker room or vice versa. It's just a little more up to date.
Thank you. Any questions for Ron?
Ron, you solicited all the quotes that were presented
Yes.
in front of us?
And I called companies that we've used in the past, get the best numbers I could.
Was there, how many, was there any kind of requirement for the number of quotes or any goal to
No,
number?
we didn't have time to put it out, because when you put it out to bid, it takes months. We didn't really have that time in this instance to do that.
How old's that vent fan that's working now?
Neighborhood of 30 years. The motor is new. The motor was changed within the last 6 months. The problem with the vent fans is they weren't made to go sideways in a wall. They're made for a roof with vertical shaft. And when they took them and they put them sideways, they work. But over the years, those shafts have slightly bent. So it puts more pressure on all the pulleys and the motors, and we've lost motors. The other one bent so much that you can't put a motor on it again.
You wouldn't want to consider having a second one on hand?
That's why I think a second vent is a good idea, because if something happens.
I mean, you need one now, right?
Right.
And another one.
The other one's, right, the one that's existing working now is still gonna be almost 30 years old. The vent itself, like I said, the motor is new, but the vent itself, yes, is 30 years old. And that was just what they had at the time. They just took a sealant vent and did it sideways. They stuck it in an old window.
What kind of time frame we're looking at for the filters?
The filters, they're an in-stock product. They can put them in as soon as you guys say yes. I call them up and they can put them in.
On the quote for that fan, 3418, this is about a year old?
It was about a year old.
Yeah.
I recently talked to Mike Walenta. I don't know if you know him. He's a local contractor, and he said I didn't realize he did that type of work. I thought he just worked on heating systems. He said he can give us a quote too, so I would have 2 quotes. And that's not something that has to be done right away to open the pool.
Right.
And the pool can be open while that's being done.
Right.
So if it happens a month from now, it's fine. We don't have to have the pool closed for another month. Same thing with the ultraviolet light. That doesn't have to be done with the pool closed. And the heating system for the air as well. I mean, the pool can be open without the air heated. The pool itself, the temperature, it's gonna heat the air enough where it's usable.
Do we plan on breaking even with the income for the pool?
What type of revenues are we looking at every year just from the pool? Because it's not broken out in the budget. budget statement. It's
No,
just
I can give you those
regular
numbers, I can give you those numbers over the past 4 years, I was working on that, so I can put it together, email it out to you so you have it.
Because
So-
right now, the expenses are
No.
$113,000
Yeah.
just for the pool,
Mhm.
and I don't see us bringing
No.
relatively close. So I guess that's kind of, where I'm getting at here. If we're gonna keep investing more money into the pool, which I think the pool is great, I think it's a great asset for the town to have and for families to use. But I think we're at a point now where we really need to figure out, like, how do we market the pool? What additional programs can we get involved in town? Like, looking towards, like, physical therapists in the area to do physical therapy, utilizing our pool. There are different types of swim programs that we don't utilize here. I think we're kind of at that point now where if we're really going to invest all this money into the pool, we need to know that we're gonna get some money back. And I really caution that's something that we get more definitive answers to if we're going to end up doing, like retiling the bathroom and reformatting that, like those bigger things like that. I think we really need to look into those.
I could tell you last year we collected 89,000 and their expenditures were 109. And that was for last year.
What's the percentage of out-of-towners using the pool? It used to be about 70%.
I
Is it
think,
still that high?
I think so, yes, I think it's
So
that,
about 30% of our
yes,
usage is from people in town.
correct.
Okay.
Which that's obviously a huge market to tap into. If 70% is out of town, we only have 30% of people in our town actually using it, so.
Right now, we collected 51,900 at a budget of 113. So we have 60,000 still.
Kevin, I know you've been working with the rec department and trying to get a game plan together, because of course, as Kim was saying, she brings up a very valid point. I mean, we can't just keep on doing the same old, obviously, because we're losing money. It's an important asset to have, but we got to do something different. There's got to be some type of game change going forward. So could we request to have some type of actual maybe document or something put together as far as in discussions with the rec department? This is what we're seriously looking to put through to try to generate more revenue and try to get more people using it, and kind of see where you're at with that.
You're anticipating also talking to each department, so I think that would be appropriate to have that information for that meeting.
Okay.
And we've already started the discussion about how we can start marketing within the town, because again, the numbers are bearing out that more people use it from out of town that come in. We actually came up with an idea to market it to a discount for the largest employer in the town of Plainfield, which is the Board of Education. So that's one of the ideas, and doing the same thing to different larger businesses in town would be a next step. So the other way is how else do you get the information out to the public? And we're looking at different ways to do that. So I think it would be appropriate, if that's okay with you, to have somewhat of a plan together, so that when you're talking in front of the rec department that speaks to you on their budget, that is one of the topics of discussion. And I agree, there's going to be some sort of break-even point. If you could, that'd be fantastic. The idea, though, is we do have a great asset and we don't want to lose it. So we anticipate the fact that we're going to be running short on those coming in with revenue. So actually, in next year's budget, I was already planning on putting a little extra money in there just to offset that. So every year, the same thing. We know we're not going to make the money, but give us the opportunity to market it better and prove the point that we can actually put more people into the pool. And let's see what happens after that. And that's what I would ask of the Board of Finance for the next budget season.
Definitely a great asset. No one really wants to get rid of it. And I just want to make the point too, I don't think we should look to increase fees for people to come and use it either, because that, substantially,
Right.
that would defeat the purpose.
That's why the idea was instead to market it to other people for certain discounts to try to draw more in. And more programs in that case, because if they do come in, we need to offer more things as well, more times.
Is there any history of business sponsorship or advertising around the pool? I recognize that the immediate vicinity of the pool, the environment isn't exactly conducive to signs or anything like that, but has there ever been any kind of sponsorship of the pool done by local businesses?
Not that I know of.
Not that I can recall, no.
Has it been brought up or explored in the
It's
past?
another idea to bring back to the rec department to see if we can talk about that. And by the way, I appreciate your ideas, because it's not just going to come from 2 or 3 people. It really should be coming from more. And if you have other ideas, it's just email or call.
Any idea how much we spent on maintaining the pool in the last 5 years, other than filters? Do we use sand filters?
Right now, sand filters,
Okay, other
yes.
than, normal cost? I know
The new filters will be cartridge filters.
but is there any idea for the last 5 years, what it's cost over and above normal maintenance we put into that pool?
We can try to get you that for the next meeting. Is that
The
okay?
biggest one, I was looking briefly through the expenditures over the past 4 years, the biggest one was that Dryatron, 100,000, that was the biggest purchase. I found some small ones, 2,500, but those were chemicals that we bought,
No, that's
a few
normal.
years.
Normal maintenance.
Yeah, that's normal, but the one that I noticed was the Dryatron, that was it.
Since I've been here 5 years and nothing big has broken.
Yeah.
Just that one, yeah, knock on wood. Just recently, it was that vent fan, and recently the pump. Well, he's just asking about big fences in the last few years. There haven't been since I've been here. The Dectron, like Kelly mentioned, and then that one vent fan, but we haven't replaced it yet, so the cost didn't go out on it. And then just recently, the pool pump itself, that was like 3,700. That's part of this project.
Now, what was that issue we had, I don't remember if it was in the summer or fall with a vacuum system? Something about a vacuum system?
The vacuum had died.
Yeah.
The computer on the vacuum, they're all computerized now. It went. The cost of the new computer was the same cost as buying a new one. So we used money that's put aside every year towards replacing the bulbs in the ultraviolet light, because that is something that has to be done every year to 18 months. And because the ultraviolet light was broken, we took the money that was put aside for those bulbs and bought a new vacuum with it.
Ron, do we have a figure for the labor on that pool pump? The first item, the 3575, should be the first quote. I noticed everything else, material labor is included in the dollar value.
The pump that went, yes, the labor was, I want to say it was like $500 or $600. It was actually, the pump itself was actually installed the other day. It has not been, that's why I'm trying to remember the number off the top of my head, but it was right in the $500 to $600 range.
That's not reflected on here, though. Right?
No,
Okay.
no, I didn't know what that would be.
What's the current plan to get the pool in use?
As soon as we can get the filters in, I mean, they could put the filters in tomorrow or Friday if if you agree tonight. And then it's a matter of the pool coming up to temperature, which will probably be at some point next week. It'll be warm enough to allow people to come in.
You would put this together.
Yeah, that's the line item transfer if you want to make a motion to accept.
Yeah.
As presented. 28,037.18, the highway supervisor, then that's gonna be gone. The 66,000 will be gone after if we move that money. And then 4,285 from the benefit line item, that's health insurance. To support the cost. The total cost is 41,322. We have 9,000 in the budget right now for the ultraviolet lights. And then we would have to come up with 32,322.
At least you could make that 41,922 if it's 500 to 600 in addition for the.
Right.
And the 41,000, that's with the basic locker room update, that's not
Correct.
a full locker room
Yep, that's the basic. So if you wanted to add the 600 in, for benefits would be 4,885.01. That's the labor that we were just discussing about the bump, if you estimate 600. That's the number.
So the transfers would basically defray all but $9,000 off of the.
Yes, because that's budgeted, yep.
And that's assuming the basic locker room upgrade is given, not the complete overhaul.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's just approximately 4,000? Do we have, there isn't obviously an invoice for that?
No, we don't have an exact number.
Okay.
And that's with, my buildings and grounds guy and I doing the work ourselves. Would be, and I don't think it's gonna actually add up to the full $4,000. I just wanted to make sure there was enough. The material we're gonna use for the dividers, and the two doors, are around $1,500. The rest of it is just, it's pressure treated plywood, steel framing, some fiber reinforced plastic, it's hinges. I don't think it's gonna come up to the 4,000, but I wanted to make sure I didn't have to go back to anybody and say, hey, I need another 500.
What would the timeline be to do that? How long would that take?
A solid week, if we don't get called for anything else. If him and I can both work for a full week on it.
Are there anticipated overtime needs?
No.
Basically, the two largest costs on here though are two things that we need
Mhm.
right away.
Yep.
And that's the filters and the UV light.
Yep.
So where would the balance of the $9,000 need to come from?
Replace, it's under, something on the last one. Yep, under capital expenditure. Yeah, so from that line item.
Well, that answers the following question, is about the capital. Well, that's why capital plans are put together.
You try.
That's all.
You try.
That serves its purpose, so.
All right, any other questions or comments on the pool? If not, is there a motion?
for clarity's sake, you'd be looking for a motion to approve the pool transfers.
I move we approve the transfers.
Okay. Now, are we making a correction here, or an addition
Yes,
rather?
please.
So we definitely need to note that for the record, so what is the amount again?
It is 28,037.18 from the highway supervisor,
Yeah.
and then 4,885.01 from the benefits, health insurance.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Any other discussion?
Is that gonna cover the entire cost of all the miscellaneous stuff that's not necessary to get the pool going? Like the locker rooms?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
That's on that
The
list.
basic one.
That covers the
Yes,
basic
yeah.
one.
Basic one.
Not the,
Yeah, not the overhaul, extensive.
Are we in compliance with handicap entrance there?
That's why we can only do one unisex changing room, because we wouldn't be in compliance if we tried to make a small one in one of the other locker rooms.
Okay, if there's no other questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Approve the full transfer with the correction. And with that, I will open the floor for citizens' participation.
Sean Peterson. How long has the coil been bad in the pool, the heat not working, and the control valve?
Since just before Christmas.
It failed just before Christmas?
Yes. It was
Why
working.
wasn't it replaced with the Drytron?
I have no idea.
Is it off of the steam system or the Drytron itself?
The water comes through the steam system, but it's forced hot air, and the air comes from the Drytron.
So it's a steam coil?
Yes.
And how long has the exhaust fan been broken?
The exhaust, well over a year.
How come that wasn't in the budget last year?
I have no idea, I don't make the budget.
And how long has the UV filter been broken?
At least a year and a half.
And that was in the budget last year, just not enough money for it.
I couldn't tell you, I'm not sure why they didn't do it.
There was nine grand was in the budget for this year. And what's the cost of that filter? On your sheet?
You, 13,000.
13,000, so we didn't carry enough money in that. Seems like we're spending a lot of money willy-nilly and not budgeting properly for these things. I mean, we've known that the filters are 13 years old. Well, they were 12 years old last year when the budget was being written, but it wasn't written into the budget as even a possible thing. So, just a statement. We need to think about what we're doing a little bit more, so we don't have to do crisis management like we're doing right now.
Yeah, and one thing we can certainly do is, when we're going, as Kevin said, when we have the department heads meeting, asking for not only game plans, but also touching on that subject more, we can certainly do that with the department head. Are you budgeting for?
But the other thing is, you just approved not the bare necessity to get this thing back up and running. You gave them a bunch of extra stuff that wasn't needed to make it run, but it was just luxury to make it better. That could have been budgeted into next year's budget, too. And let the taxpayers make a decision.
Okay. Other citizen participation? Yes.
Naomi, I'm a little confused. The capital improvement plan had the ultraviolet in it?
In the town budget, it had it on the second to last page. for
So it was in the town budget or the capital improvement?
The town budget.
Okay, and
I don't
then,
remember in the capital improvement, I'd have to look.
and then, Ron, did you just say that we used that money for the vacuum?
No, we use the,
Okay, because I misunderstood
each
that.
year to 18 months, the bulbs, and I'm not sure how the new system works exactly, but the old system, the bulbs, they wear out like a tanning bed.
Yep.
The bulbs are about $3,000 to replace the bulbs. And that money was still in the budget as well, so we used that money to purchase the vacuum. rather than asking for a separate amount.
So I'm in agreement with Sean. Is there some kind of schedule that this pool can be kept on for like general routine maintenance for parts, and then when they're starting to come to their life expectancy, have some type of preparation ahead of time for the budget? Is that possible for you?
It is.
Okay.
There's no existing PM schedule for the pool?
Never has. Never has.
And there might have been something, but that would have been with the rec department, because they're in charge of the pool. Basically, what I do with it is I check the chemicals each day, and it's not my department. I can't set up the schedule for those things. I can work with the department head of that department to do that.
How long has the pool been open?
This is my issue, because I've been following this with the pool since like 2015, since the $100 humidifier had to go in. And every year we are told that the rec department is going to promote this, we're going to market it, we're going to bring in revenues. Last administration, we were told that the rec director was going to be bringing in revenue through extra programs. It's not happening. We're not marketing one of our best assets in town, and it's a drain. If we're not going to increase some type of marketability and have a better scope, we were also told that the rec department was no longer watching over the pool. The past administration was actually supposed to be monitoring and watching the revenues and the programs for the pool. So I agree with Tom that we need something more concrete coming from the rec department. As far as programs, there needs to be something from building and grounds as far as general maintenance schedules that Kelly can work with. This is, I mean, it's just every year it's the same thing. It's kind of like, we know it's sitting there, we know it should be doing more, we're promised it's going to, and then nothing comes about. So that's where I'm at. The highway department, I have huge issues with that extra revenue from the salary. In 2016, 2017, we used the supervisor's salary to make a final installment on the vac haul. That's what we were told in a Board of Finance meeting. We were then told that there was going to be no highway supervisor hired for the following year. So that salary ended. Then it was earmarked and put in there. You remember this, Kelly? I questioned you at one of the Board of Finance meetings. Then again, it goes in again. I'm sorry, it looks padded to me. Why, up until 2016, 2017, did we always earmark a department head supervisor for the highway department and building and grounds? Those two departments no longer have supervisors line itemed, but we're earmarking money in there with no intention on hiring a supervisor, because there was no intention last year to hire one either. That was stated in multiple meetings by the last administration. So, again, it's not okay that we're using that like extra contingency funds. So, hey, the department goes over budget, let's pull from the highway department supervisor because we're keeping extra monies in there. That's how it appears to the residents.
Yeah.
The other thing is the COG services on the line item, $54,000. What services are we getting for that money? It went up $10,000 from the year before, but yet we're not getting transportation, we're not using their engineering services, so I am curious what we're getting for that money, because I don't have any idea.
That one I did find out.
What are we paying for that service?
That is NECOG, is Northeast Council of Government, and it's based on your population. It's a rate that we pay to be part of the membership.
But what are we getting from that membership? It's kind of like the school, the Board of Education opted to come out of one of their programs for membership. Matt Raven could probably better.
Kevin, maybe you could speak, because obviously you represent us at those meetings and you participate, so what is talked about as far as the services that we get?
The representation for our voice in Hartford on some areas, they're also working with us to supply and offer different services if we wanted to utilize it, such as if we needed to have engineering, if we needed to have other services. I mean, they do offer the animal control, which we don't participate in. They're working right now to help us to finalize the transportation through NECOG and SEAT. So that's one of the offers that we have on the table with them. So we are utilizing for that. There's other lists of items. I can bring it to the attention of the public if you'd like to. I can bring it out for the full list. But we share services. They also help us to write different types of grants. If you apply for certain types of grants for roadways, they help to write the grants for us as well, like STEEP. So if we anticipate that we'd be utilizing for that, we could do it under that umbrella.
Yeah, Kevin, if you could send that to me, I
Sure.
think that would be great to know, because I mean, we know it's part of the budget, we know we put it in there every year or increase it, but it would be good to really boil down to the specifics as far as, so what does this get us?
Okay.
Is there any way that we can actually get a list of the services for the last 5 years that we've gotten from them? And where the increases are and what the potential, what does the first selectman plan on utilizing for services from that program in the upcoming year? Because this board approved money for public transportation. The line item got kicked back to 12.5. We're still looking into that service, and it's gonna come in at a higher amount than 12.5, but we're paying $54,000 for a COG service that doesn't appear anybody really knows what we're getting from. What grants have we received in the last 5 years through them?
I'm hung up on the pool still. The heater downstairs, the heat coil, what is actually wrong with it? Why do we need a new one? What's the problem?
There's a leak somewhere in that coil.
So the coil's leaking?
The coil is leaking.
And they can't patch it? They don't, all right. And why do we need a control valve? Is the control valve failed
Because
too?
it's rusted so bad it's falling off the pipes. It's just old.
How long's that been going on?
Probably the last year. It still worked, but it's time to replace it.
Okay. Who do we have on staff that is a certified pool? It's a public pool, but it's supposed to be certified operators, basically, to maintain the chlorine levels and stuff like that. Do we have anybody currently certified?
Yeah, Casey and I are both certified, but that's what the certification is just the chemical levels. It doesn't have to do with any of the equipment, and it's not a requirement in the state of Connecticut.
Are you sure?
When we took the class, it was not a requirement.
Okay.
I mean, that might have changed. We took the class about a year and a half ago, but it was not a requirement at that time. It was just something that the town wants us to do, so they paid for us to go. But we learned about the chemicals in the pool. We didn't learn anything about the pumps or...
It's primarily for public health. It's
Right.
the purpose is the chemical, to make sure you don't chlorine something.
And to make sure the water is safe.
Right.
You know, if there's enough chemicals as well.
Okay, so you guys are currently certified?
Yes.
Other citizens' participation? Yep.
You miss me, Tom?
I do.
I know what Ted does. Hi, Ted. Scott Charlotte from Moosup. So the world might end today, but I actually agree with Sean and Naomi about the pool. We've talked about this over and over. I know.
I'm gonna run out the door.
We've talked about this over and over again, and it's, I mean, I've been going to budget meetings for 15 years, and we keep talking about the same thing Naomi said, marketing, 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 nobody ever does it. And we continue to pour money into a pool that 70% of the citizens aren't using. It's the same argument that people use for the transfer station. You're only giving out 7 passes, but I bet you there's 75% of the people who don't use the transfer station yet. There's a $219,000 bill on the budget that we all pay for. Stuff's gotta end eventually. Either you gotta start charging for the transfer station, as much as people don't wanna hear it, you're gonna have to start charging more for the pool. I can remember 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, when Paul said he was gonna pull it, there were, I don't know how many citizens said they'd be more than happy to pay double because we're not charging enough. Yet, we didn't increase the rates.
No, they did.
Okay,
They
did you
increased
double?
No, they didn't
Right.
double, and they lost people. A lot of their regular people
But
that
you know-
said, people that said they would pay double.
You lost
Wouldn't even pay
people
that.
to the, you lost people to the YMCA is what you lost people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, because you can go get a pass at the YMCA and it has a lot more to do it. So that's the point, we can't keep pouring money into a pool that people aren't coming to. I mean, it's the end of the story. How much money was approved tonight? Because I didn't hear total amount that was approved. I got the line item transfers, but how much total money are we putting into this pool? Because I heard, I think if Kelly said it right, or if I listened to Kelly right, I should say, Right now, we spent 66,000 on a budget of 113, correct?
It was 41,000, we budgeted 9 in the budget, so we're line item transferring 32,000.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I mean, again, you wouldn't do it at your house, you wouldn't continue to throw money into something that was no good, so I don't know why we keep doing it in the town. Did the highway department ever sell the old equipment at the auction, and how much money did we bring in?
Yes, they did, the amount.
41,000 roughly, and some of that proportioned out to the Water Pollution Control Authority because they sold 4 vehicles, and that's why we were able to. They also had to pay for some of the auctioneer percentages. So the town itself got about $36,000.
Yep.
The highway department also found some more scrap, and they sold that and got another 1,000. So
So they hit close to the 40,000.
so yeah.
I heard, why are we gonna have to file an amendment on the adult education for last year's money? I heard somebody say that during the
Special
meeting.
education?
Right, there was a,
Adult education.
under the
It's the
adult.
$108,000 that I believe he's talking about.
Yes.
Well, no, somebody said that we got to file the amendment
Oh, that's for the audit.
from this year's auditors.
The EFS, it's the financial reporting the school has to report for education, grants and expenditures.
Because ours wasn't completed at that time.
Our audit wasn't.
Our audit wasn't completed at that time. What the school ended up filing would have been an incomplete filing, I think, if I understood that correctly.
And do we plan on trying to, so one of my bone of contentions last budget season was putting $108,611 in the adult education in the town line item. I can tell you, that is a big error, because I can tell you the Office of Policy and Management says it's a big error. Can't file a complaint until the money is brought in and spent, but if a complaint is filed, I will tell you that they have promised that they would probably take money away from the town. It would be affected in next year's education grant. So is there going to be an amendment done in this year's budget to move that 108,611 back to the school? Because that's taxpayer money that was, that was $108,000 taken away from the taxpayers.
Just as an update, I did meet with Ken on that issue, and we spoke about that directly, and we asked him not to expend the monies until we get an answer from the state of Connecticut as to what would happen if we did. Because we want to be careful about where we actually spend it from, and you're right, if we can do an appropriation to transfer it back to the Board of Education, it might be more appropriate.
So, as long as it's legitimate, yes, it's gonna go back to the way it was.
Right. It has to not be spent by the town, because if it's spent by the town, it is an error. My last question, what was the total amount for all the line item transfers that you did earlier?
Yeah.
You want both separate?
No, not
Please.
the pool, I just want the other one, just the total number of dollars that was transferred.
So it was $37,962.82. That was the first. And then under police, it was 53,000.
No.
15,400.
Mike almost had a heart attack. What?
So total is $53,362.82.
Alright, I just was curious, because, again, appreciate Art and June doing the videos, but when you vote the way you voted, the public doesn't know how much money you're transferring because you're not given the total amounts that are being transferred. So when you do them in the future, if you can do it, so on the video, you get the total amount, it would be helpful for those of us who can't come to the meetings. Because I feel bad for this winter reporter, I smell like fish, and he's been sitting next to me for an hour and a half, so I can feel his pain.
Thank you, Scott. Naomi, did you have?
Yeah, the only thing, again, that I'm gonna disagree with Scott is, I look at the pool like a car. It's like if the owner gets a car delivered and it's secondhand and they invest into it, they're not gonna put it in the back building locked behind a closed door. They're gonna showcase it, they're gonna market it. We need to do that or stop dumping the money in. That we agree on.
That's my point.
Yep, mine too.
And I want to say, I'm not against the pool, I'm against the way it's being maintained.
Right.
And that goes for a lot of properties in this town.
Can I say it was neglected? The pool was neglected.
My question is, do we have proper staffing? Do we not have enough people taking care of our properties? Do we not have the
And when
right
there was an
qualified people doing our
There was
properties?
an article February 12th that went in the Norwich Bulletin on the pool with Ron discussing this whole thing. And I put it out on Facebook on Plainfield residents, and in 2 days it had 138 likes. It shows me, and these are names of people I've never seen or met before, shows me a lot of people want the pool open. So if we market it, just 2 days on there, can you imagine if we market this thing and really sell it?
How about the
You know,
fact that a
give-
gentleman was even quoted in the paper, he lives in town, a newer resident, didn't even know we had it.
Right, exactly. So it's been neglected, and so is the marketing of it. Poorly neglected, one of the biggest assets in this little town, and offering for the public has been neglected.
John, did you have anything else?
Well, I'm disappointed that the building maintenance person is saying, well, it's not my pool, it's the rec department. You guys gotta figure out what the hell's going on. Who's what?
What I mean on this is, like, I know this stuff is broken. I go to the first selectman or to the department and say, this is broken. I can't go buy something. I know it's broken. I know it's been broken for a year. I know it's been broken for a year and a half. What do you want me to do? I bring it up to whoever's above me. You can't, your company, if you need to have a truck broken, you can't go buy a new truck. You gotta ask your boss. If he doesn't buy you a truck, you don't have a truck.
Right.
That's what we run. We run with that all over town.
I understand that.
I mean, so there's only so much I
We
can
just need to
do.
correct the system, that's all. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so, are you good, Sean?
I'm good.
All right.
You guys wanna go home?
Other citizens' participation, yes.
In light of the conversation, would it be possible for us to get an itemized list of expenditures on the pool for regular scheduled upkeep? So we know exactly what's going in the pool?
All right, other citizen participation? No? All right, in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? We are adjourned.